coup d'etat of boxing back for a post show reaction, and it was definitely imperative for official scorecard and myself to just give a reaction, because there's a hell of a lot of people who have been doubting the capabilities, also the drive and determination of one Oleksandr Usyk. A lot of negativity, a lot of misunderstanding as well. And today, the big game player, the perennial road warrior, once again exemplifies that he's just simply cut from a different cloth. And yeah, a tremendous time. And official, what a fantastic fight. And justif coup d'etat of boxing, who have been pretty much throughout, not only now, but when Oleksandr Usyk was even at cruiserweight, we had aspirations that he would win not only the cruiserweight undisputed, but he also would be, and he would also move up in weight and capture the world heavyweight championship. We had, absolutely no doubts, and yeah, we feel fully vindicated.
Absolutely. Good evening, corruption. Big up to Oleksandr Usyk. Oh, wow, what a fight. Almost, I don't mean to go into negativity, but even some shitty scorecards couldn't detract him for capturing the belts from AJ. And just like you said, from the beginning, we knew who's the superior boxer. And we didn't have any doubt about it. The only doubt was, is he gonna get robbed or not?
Yes.
Now, there is many things to say about it. But if you wish to continue to stay in your piece, just go on. I'll go with the flow.
Coming into the fight, Usyk was clearly under no illusions, and obviously none of us were even on what he had to do to dominate the fight, to put the decision beyond the doubt of any of the officials, knowing that there's a rematch clause as well. But now Joshua is faced with the decision whether to invoke it, but it was pretty clear cut for Usyk. There was no real pressure except from his own camp, his trainers, and from himself. He's expressed his desire to be undisputed for so long. He had to wait 3 years. There was a lot of politics and roadblocks that were inhibiting his progress. And something official, when I went on to the BDA podcast and also Thunderdome and within the chat, and I mentioned to a lot of the people that Oleksandr Usyk against Derek Chisora, he specifically put on a very circumspect fight, because Joshua was in attendance and he didn't want to show his full artillery. I got called an idiot in both their respective chats, saying that I was disillusioned and that I was deluded. But you recall me making that point live on BDA as well. Why reveal everything? This guy realizes that Eddie Hearn had brought him in specifically for that fight, just to scout him. So why is Usyk going to really put it on Chisora? He had the capabilities of knocking him out. It was certainly within his capabilities, but no, it was about minimizing any damage, not getting viciously cut, etc., and just clinically outboxing him to the point in which the decision wouldn't be too close, whether it's a majority or a split. But we saw there that Eddie Hearn was almost favoring Derek Chisora, because they were clearly eyeing out an undisputed championship with Fury, and Usyk was very much a nuisance, a problem for them. A draw or something like that would have perhaps put his aspirations of invoking the WBA mandatory in check. But he got through that, and And it's almost ironic and official that it had it not been for Deontay Wilder and his arbitration case, Oleksandr Usyk would still probably be waiting for a title shot now.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, man. And yeah, I do fully agree with you. The moment, well, as many people who are listening to us may know, you and me, even when we are not doing shows, we are talking in between us about the fights. And exactly, just like you told me, I mean, his performance against, what's his name? Chisora.
Yeah.
He had Chisora out on his feet at least a few times and just didn't want to push for it. So just for the exact reason that you mentioned. But now going on a few months before the fight, uh, I was the one who went to multiple chats on different channels telling people that, well, as we know what you did, the moment we found out that what kind of training he was doing to add on weight, I'm thinking about CrossFit, doing the CrossFit. You were the one who, how do you call it? You did some research finding out that CrossFit is a great way to add on mass at the same time keep the explosivity, the explosiveness. And so everybody who was worried about Usyk getting huge but um, having just the muscle mass that could only hinder him was completely wrong, but no one was listening. And indeed, to me personally, I mean, Usyk is 34 years old. He's slowly losing his speed. I mean, he was quick enough for AJ and quicker than any other heavyweight is. But I was seeing that, of course, it's not his movement is not as quick as before, but great timing, great game plan, and so yeah, it turned out very well.
You know what it is, official? It's the human physiology. Usyk is naturally a smaller man than
Mhm.
Anthony Joshua. So even if Joshua is perhaps redacting his weight by 10, 20 pounds, eliminating his muscle that he put on when he first turned, when he first became a heavyweight, when he was a skinny, sort of tall, 6 feet 6 inch novice, we know that he started out lifting a lot of heavy weights, put on these weight like that. So even if Joshua is losing that, and Usyk is conversely putting on weight, he will still have those advantages in hand speed and foot speed. He will always be the faster guy, even if they were the same weight today. At sort of 240 pounds, Usyk would still be significantly faster. But you talk about the reduction in his movement, but we saw today his footwork was far better than what it has been recently, and it had to be. But he was active from the opening bell. He started off very well. A lot of the commentators had falsely portrayed him as being a slow starter, which I never really understand what that means.
Fantastic point.
Cerebral boxers are obviously analyzing their prey, but Usyk can start whenever he wants. He's supremely fit. He had calibrated a good game plan with Tagachenko and Anatoly Lomachenko, what he was going to do up against a heavier fighter, and he employed a lot of the tactics what he did against Tony Bellew as well. Bellew was synonymous with somebody who has a good jab, straight right hand, left hook. And through Usyk's capturing lead hand and lead foot control, he was reducing Tony Bellew to just a right hand. And we saw that Basically, in
Corruption.
this fight, but
Sorry,
he did it
sorry for
differently.
cutting you off, but again, there is that noise that is preventing you from being understood. So right now it got really bad when you're talking.
Still bad at the moment?
Oh, again, it's terrible. Oh, no, I cannot hear you at all. I'm only hearing that fucking noise. I don't know what's up.
I remember last time you was complaining that I was inaudible, but
Still
Chef
terrible.
was saying that I was perfectly fine in the chat.
Still terrible. Yeah, still the same. As you can
How
see,
about
guys.
now?
Oh, great. Fantastic.
Is that better?
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. So what I was saying official was that against Bellew, to try and neutralize Bellew's combinations, what he was doing, jab, straight right hand, and left hook. And through lead hand and lead foot control, he took away Bellew's jab and his patented left hook, which was giving David Hay a hell of a lot of trouble. So he was pretty much just resorting Bellew to just a right hand and looping the right hand round the guard. And as the rounds unfolded in this fight, Joshua was just reduced to a right hand, but he was trying to shorten the right hand and catch Usyk coming in. But Usyk in this fight, official, the body work straight from the opening bell, mixing head and body combinations. I didn't see hardly any combinations from Joshua. Took away his jab with movement, great head movement as well, upper body movement, activity, intensity, pressure, volume, angles. He comprehensively outboxed him.
Clearly and absolutely, undoubtedly, he outboxed him. Me personally, I had it. I couldn't give AJ more than 2 rounds. I saw it 10-2 or 11-1. There was like the first 4 rounds, Usyk swept it. Fifth round, AJ kinda started it better, but the only reason being that Usyk was taking some time off. He was circling around, and so, but AJ was not landing anything meaningful. And I'll get to that. I'll get to the reason why was that. But the beginning of the fifth round, when Usyk was not throwing, AJ landed few straight punches, few jabs and straights here and there. But then in the second half, Usyk put it on him, took the fifth on in my book. The sixth round, another round where Usyk was taking some steam off, and it was competitive again. AJ was not able to land. I mean, he landed a few very good straight rights, but that was about it. And I gave AJ that round. Then the eighth round was competitive, but still Usyk took it in my opinion. But you can argue you can give it to AJ. And then I gave AJ the 10th round, I think, which was competitive again. And what was funny in that fight, I would say in the ninth round, I had the impression that AJ for a moment started to box on his back foot, off his back foot, uh, undoubtedly because he was hurt by many punches from Usyk, but also because I had the impression that he changed the game plan, that he went on for surviving, guessing that he would get the decision no matter what. But then the beating that he was taking in the last third of that fight was totally one-sided. That in the 12th round he changed his game plan again and started coming forward towards Usyk, trying to pressure him and hurt him. using his last bits of energy. But once Usyk caught him with some fantastic counter punches and combos, well, you saw what happened. Usyk almost stopped him. But to me, the reason why AJ, who is without any doubt a much bigger puncher than Usyk is, was landing softer punches because Usyk, throughout the whole fight, he was landing the better punches, the cleaner punches. He was hurting him multiple times very bad. And the reason for it is because AJ needs to set his feet in order to punch. And that's exactly what Usyk with his footwork took away from AJ. So he was never in a position to put his whole body into his punches. And I would say Usyk played his game of chess perfectly. Me myself, I for this fight I haven't done any film study. In fact, only 2 days ago I did a film study on AJ's fight against what's his name, Pulev, but I didn't have enough of time to prepare it. I wanted to do a pre-fight show today and or yesterday, didn't have enough time to do it, but that was the only fight that I was able to analyze. And so, but even despite that, a month ago I already laid a bet. Now I have my bet was Usyk in between the 7th and the 12th round by stoppage, so I didn't get it. But anyways, fantastic performance, and I'm sure I can say a lot of interesting things about this fight and the way he took AJ's left hook away. It was clinical. By the way, before you go on, I would just like to say a shout out to Sina Mosia, to Dak, to the Shepherd of Sons, Triple JJJ, and he overhand was there. Yeah, overhand too. Are you there, Karan?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's one of
No problem.
those great points, by the way, on what he was doing. One punch in which what Usyk was doing in this fight was that sweeping left hand. So it's coming in sort of clockwise from Joshua's perspective, because when you've got a southpaw and an orthodox, it's difficult for the orthodox fighter to actually, their jab hands line up, their feet obviously clash, but it's difficult for the orthodox fighter to land body shots. And whenever orthodox fighters are fighting southpaw, you can see their volume cuts down. It just gives them a hell of a lot of difficulties. So with Usyk, what he was doing from the earlier rounds, that sweeping left hook, sometimes shifting to his right and land and splitting AJ's guard and landing the straight left, but other times catching him sometimes with a lead sweeping left hook, and that's what hurt pretty much buzzed up Joshua as early as the third round. And I think that was the punch that was busting up his eye as well.
And also about that looping left from Usyk, the way that he throws it, and he used it perfectly against Joshua, is before he throws it, he comes in with his, I don't know, either straight left to the body or a right jab, but when he's throwing those setup punches, he comes in with let's say a jab from the outside and steps to the right to the angle as he's throwing it. And what it does for AJ is that AJ ends from long range up to close range to the left. So he starts right in front of Joshua at long range, and as he steps in with his punch, with his jab, he ends up close and to the left of Joshua. So Joshua is turning his right glove towards Usyk, who's slightly at the angle, and that's how Usyk was coming around his right glove. Maybe doesn't sound very easy to understand the way I'm describing it without the film, but as he's stepping in with a jab to AJ's left, AJ is looking to turn his guard towards him, and
Yeah.
so Usyk is coming just around it with his looping left.
And after landing the left hand and moving to the blind angle, it obviously stops Joshua from landing his straight right hand, which he's looking to do.
Yeah, and by the way, so he was not. I would say in the second round, Usyk ate one left hand from
Yeah.
AJ, left a very good left hook from a combo, when Usyk was the one who stepped to the blind angle, doing his usual thing with angles when he goes past the front foot of the orthodox fighter, but. After that, he was not trying too much to do it. He was only going past AJ's left foot only when AJ threw his left jab or left hook and missed it. Yeah, so he could not risk it, to step to step to that angle without Joshua already throwing a punch with his left hand, and it was a very smart decision.
Damn right. And the good thing with Usyk was a little bit more versatility and being unpredictable because he wasn't looking to pivot off to the right,
Mhm.
step back with the double jab, but then he would move actually he would pivot away to actually in range of Joshua's hand, but he tends to flow in and out of angles between sort of mid range and short range, just using bringing his foot into range, so almost tempting Joshua that he's going to fire in. So Joshua's right hand was falling short. Actually, very good. His defensive maneuverability at times is just fantastic. Um, Shifting back, but then he would counter with the jab as well. When Joshua would try and come in with those short, almost short, sort of jolty right hands, almost what he was doing against Povetkin, a shorter opponent, trying to catch him sort of bouncing in. Um, Oleksandr would just retreat. Sometimes, even in the straight line, it didn't even matter to him, but just come back with the jab. But whenever he would land a combination, there would always be body and head, right hook to the body. Even when Joshua was trying to hold him in the back of the head with his left hand, which he likes to do, fire
Yeah.
left hook, miss it, and just sort of grab him. Usyk is actually very good fighting out of clinches, and I think it was the fight in Russia against Gassiev. You could see when Gassiev was trying to clinch him, Usyk would actually fight out of the clinch. So I think he was prepared for all sort of eventualities. If the bigger man was trying to impose his will and try and sort of rough him up, maybe even use his head, etc. Especially when their energy tank starts to deplete, they run out of ideas, their A game is not working. And you see a lot of that with Joshua. There's a lot of dichotomy, there's not a lot of singular strategy as there was before. The Andy Ruiz fight had really depleted a hell of a lot of confidence, I think, in his chin. So
Mhm.
we're seeing him a little bit more erratic with his game plans, trying to just make adjustments on the fly, which isn't a bad thing because then you're obviously less unpredictable as well. But didn't didn't try to fight like a big man as he would. He didn't really establish his jab, couldn't establish his jab, but he never persevered. He'd never tried to throw check left hooks from the outset to stop Usyk from moving around. Right hook this side, left hook that side. So Usyk was able to just sort of dance around him at times, land punches, walk AJ down as well. He had no problems of actually exchanging and trading with him, but he made sure he got his body dipped down a hell of a lot, employed the high guard at times well. So he varied his defense at times. But the combination punching, I'm glad he He kept at the body because we saw by round 7, 8, Joshua was definitely feeling those body shots, and it undoubtedly made a difference in wearing him down because Joshua had leaned down. He looked a hell of a lot fitter than what I've seen before, a lot less bulk. So we knew his cardio and his endurance would have been good. But Usyk's perseverance with head and body really slowed him down. And, a couple more rounds, or even in the 12th round, you could have made the case that that was a Pernil Whitaker and Julio Cesar Chavez justifiable stoppage.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point because I was thinking the same thing watching the fight. I was wondering, while looking at AJ's physique in the ring, I was wondering, that guy looks very slim, well, not exactly. He's a big guy, but slimmer than in some of his other fights. And so, if I didn't know his weight in the ring, I would guess that it was less than 240, like if it was 235, something like that.
I
But
agree.
yeah, he was very well physically prepared, and that's undoubtedly one part of the reason why Usyk was not able to stop him, because you could clearly see that Usyk didn't really trust the judges, and then that his game plan was indeed to go for a late stoppage. But the other part of the reason why he didn't do it, he he didn't want to push hard enough, because AJ, he can, just a little miss, and AJ can clinch him, grab him, like he tried a few times, to land that left forearm on Usyk's neck and throw a huge right uppercut. And yeah, we have L Dog in the chat room eating crow. Big up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
all of all of the all of the doubters, all of the doubters, you can all line up all the way.
Oh yeah. We are taking names. We have the receipts, all the receipts. By the way, I cannot wait to see Beats and Rhymes cry, and many, many, many others,
Yeah,
man.
them people are just deplorable, wretched animals. I've got no, they don't even know what they're talking about in boxing.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was so nicely put.
2012, when I said Oleksandr Usyk was the best fighter I'd ever seen, and he'd go on to dominate. And even 7, 8 years ago on a podcast, when I said he'll be undisputed cruiser and he'll be undisputed heavyweight as well. So I know what I'm talking about. And on the
And
BDH show as well, we said repeatedly back then as well that he'll beat everyone at heavyweight. You put Tyson Fury in the ring, I think Usyk beats him as well. And it's interesting, James Ali Bashir, Usyk's former trainer, always said that Fury is an easier fight for him than what AJ would be. And
that's
a
very
lot of people
interesting.
frowned at that, but we'll see in time what happens. Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But I'm surprised with what you just said, because so Ali Bashir thought that Usyk would have a rather easy time with Tyson. Well, I haven't thought about that possible fight, but we'll see, of course. But yeah, I was guessing that Tyson Fury may be his hardest one, due to his size and to his dexterity. But yeah, maybe I changed my mind too. But absolutely, man,
yeah,
people.
yeah.
uh,
I mean,
to- Yeah, go on.
when you're sort of analyzing the fight, it's going to be a difficult fight. I personally, I think it's going to be a harder fight. I thought that I thought maybe Deontay Wilder would be potentially a danger fight for him because it's the awkward style that always gave Usyk problems, like
Mhm.
wild punches from wild angles. There was a couple of Nigerians who he fought. One of them, the name sort of eludes me, but he always gave Usyk a hell of a lot of troubles, firing sort of looping shots well
Tabiti
over his
Michuno.
good hand. But the textbook boxers and those who don't have good feet, were never going to give him trouble.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. By the way, do you are you talking about Michunu, the one,
No,
the
no,
short,
no,
small guy?
no, no. The Nigerian who fought Dominic Brazil, he was beating up Brazil, but eventually Brazil knocked him out.
I don't know who is that, but okay, it doesn't matter. But yeah, that's a very good point. Same, I saw the same thing with Lomachenko, who I don't want to oversimplify and say that Usyk and Lomachenko have the same styles because it's not the case, but they have some similar tendencies in the way they fight.
Mm.
And the awkwardness, for example, from Mariaga gave a lot more problems to Loma than Rigo or any other boxer ever did. But yeah, to go back to what you said about Usyk, to your credit, I know you as a huge Usyk fan, and I think that I heard you saying that he was your favorite fighter. And by the way, you're someone who went to watch him, who followed him since his amateur days. And so, yeah, absolutely, people should listen carefully when corruption is speaking. So,
Yeah, there was no one back then. 2012, I was in attendance when he campaigned at heavyweight. It's interesting. My best friend at the time, the boxer who actually got me into Eltham and sort of Welling Boxing Club back in the late 1990s. Sorry, the 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 late 80s, early 90s, when he first took me down to one of the clubs when I was actually in London. He he was interested in Joshua, so he went to the Joshua fight. I obviously attended Usyk's fights, and he came out of. I remember him coming out against. It was Landy Simon, and he said, "Nah, he didn't win that fight." Um, so pretty much there and then we were like, "He's going to get a gift decision. He's going to get that gold medal." So we know Joshua's campaign. I saw a lot of him. I saw a lot of very. I saw a lot of decisions and even refereeing protecting him as well. Some walkover victories, and there were one or two fights at sort of the ABA championship in Finchley that he never took. I don't know. The cards just suddenly just sort of got cancelled and disappeared. And he was expected to take on some real heavy hitters from Chelsea Barracks, one of the army barracks. There was another fight from up Nottingham that he never took against a guy who was, I think it was about 17 knockouts in like 18 fights. So I think they've been pushing him very carefully. His resume is very superficial, and we've talked about that many times. A green Dillian White who never had a trainer, who was ultimately given an ultimatum by Eddie Hearn in that he couldn't have surgery. If he took the fight, then afterwards Matchroom would sign him. So White went into that fight, requiring surgery. He wasn't with Jonathan Banks. He'd never even had a trainer. So very easy to capitalize on the green fighter. But we saw the problems even Joshua had in that fight against Joseph Parker. Now, did he really win that fight? To me, I didn't see anything suggest to me that Joshua won that fight. Parker was a little bit, he didn't really have as much confidence as what Joshua showed today. Otherwise, he would have won that fight even easier. But he was able to neutralize Joshua's right hand by movements very easily. And he wasn't even allowed to punch fighters much on the inside, given the referee just kept stopping them, knowing that Parker was a shorter guy with faster hands, a guy who's known to, target the body as well. So there's been a hell of a lot of protection towards Joshua over the years. The Carlos Takam fight.
oh
Um,
yeah.
we saw what happened with Andy Ruiz, a short, fat Mexican heavyweight whose training camp was Pizza Hut, and he got absolutely obliterated.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, but when I was studying his fight against Pulev, I thought about two things. One of the things you just mentioned, his resume. Okay, on the paper, you would say Joshua, and everybody says it. And I was one of the first one to say it. Joshua's resume is great, probably one of the best. I was saying one of the best resumes in boxing, along with Povetkin, although I was definitely favoring Povetkin's resume. But Joshua, yeah, he has some very good names, and people are saying he always fights tough competition, and you can say that. Of course, I'm not here to trash him, but looking back at his resume, it's the same resume, same game plan that Floyd Mayweather had for himself, meaning you can find very good names, but at what point of his career he was fighting them? Dillian White, not the same, like you said, many others, and many others who would be much tougher challenges if he took them earlier. But on the other hand, I would give him respect. He fought, yeah, old Vlad, but it was early in his career, so I'm not here for some one-sided shitting on AJ, although he does deserve criticism for being very protected. And we, the hardcore boxing fans, we are always going to hate the protected divas. Now, watching his fight against Pulev and analyzing it,
Yeah.
uh, I saw, and everybody saw this, that he was doing a lot more of counter punching. And although my film study, I didn't have enough time to do it nowhere as seriously as I wanted. But I was guessing that he was going to try to counter, and he was trying to counter Usyk, to counter punch, because going forward it would be a bad night for him. I mean, yeah, he could arguably use the clinching, the dirty tactics, and his skills, very underrated skills that he has on the inside against Usyk. But Usyk is ultimately a fighter who, I mean, I've never seen a fighter looking so good on the back foot as Usyk is. It's something else. It's amazing. So in that sense, I understood why he was being passive in this fight, and couple that with the fact that he had just to win a couple of rounds and to survive, and the decision would probably go to him. But
But
again,
official,
yeah,
but you were saying on the back foot, but let's talk about the narrative that everybody was saying that Usyk couldn't fight on the front foot and he was just
yeah,
specifically a back foot boxer.
yeah. Well, just two things. Yeah, in fact, he was fighting, let's say, not on the front foot all the time, but yeah, he was pressuring AJ and he was going in and out. Not pivoting a lot on his front foot, like you said, but going in and out and definitely using angles, but not those huge, obvious angles while pivoting on his front foot, yeah, like you said. And his defense while doing so was looking better than ever, better than ever, better than it was against Maris Bridis, better than it looked against Bellew and many other fighters that he fought on the front foot. And it was fantastic. His defense amazing for a style that he was fighting in this fight. It was amazing. But one last point about what I saw and what I remembered. I mean, while rewatching Age's fight with Pulev, was that AJ has some very underrated and seriously good inside fighting skills at short, mid range, and inside fighting. Of course, he coupled that with some dirty tactics that he knows how to use, but his skills on the inside are very good. On the other hand, what is troubling him is quick hands, quick combos, velocity. And I had some clips prepared from his fight with Pulev where Pulev attacks him with velocity and explosiveness. And that's when he backs up, he turns into all defense. When you attack him with full power, he gets scared and covers up because
Fantastic point.
be,
Yeah.
because of what happened to him against Ruiz, but also because of the lot of moments he went through with the Australian, I mean the guy from New Zealand, Parker, and even Carlos Takam, I think, where in the pocket hand speed is troubling him.
Yes.
So he can be very good technically on the inside, very smart fighter on the inside, very good, but the hand speed at short mid range is what scares him. And so that's also kind of why Usyk uh, ate some very nice straight right counters from AJ, because Usyk, because of his size, etc., in order to stop him in like 10th round, like I was hoping to see, he should have stayed in the pocket much more, and it would be dangerous for him. So that's why Usyk was. That's why Usyk almost stopped him, but didn't do it because he couldn't allow himself to stay in the pocket for too long.
Now,
So yeah,
when you have somebody like Joshua who's 6'5", 6'6", 82-inch reach, now, you're right. At long range, he's predictable, and I talked about it years back because he's throwing very heavy, bruising shots. He's trying to penetrate the guard with his heavy jab and just pound you with the straight right hand or the right hook, whatever he can, or even follow up with the uppercut. Yeah, I agree. He does a lot of better work at sort of that mid-range, short mid-range. But when you're up against a fighter, say like the Andy Ruiz,
corruption again. Your
Joshua jumped
microphone,
in through a beautiful, uppercut,
bro.
hook,
Sorry, I
the
cannot
drop.
hear you. I cannot hear you again. Again, the same problem with the microphone. I don't know if it's the case for the people in the chat room, but for me, I cannot hear you at all. There's some static, terrible, terrible static, like earlier.
Is that better?
No, no. There's some static. Oh, so L Dog is saying your mic is working fine.
See,
So
official, you're giving me some coup d'etat subterfuge messages.
uh,
How's that?
go and try again.
Chat.
Oh,
Yeah,
great, great. Can
yeah.
hear you now.
The CEO is trying to overthrow the chairman of the board here, so I'm going to rely on. So I'm relying on the chat.
Yeah, but it looks like in the chat room they can hear you fine,
Yeah, it's
but
just myself.
it's on my end.
Yeah.
Sorry for cutting you off.
Yeah. Now you lost. Now I need total recall, Arnold Schwarzenegger style. What the fuck was I even saying? But all right. Now, when you've got Joshua fighting against somebody, say at his preferred range, at sort of short range with Ruiz, what happened? If Joshua is unable to hurt Ruiz because he's only really relying on power, he's not going to have the torque with a reach that much. It then comes down to hand speed and combination, and perhaps even if you can counter that range. And we saw Andy Ruiz's hand speed, so it's not advantageous for Joshua to fight somebody like that inside the pocket because Ruiz's hands is a hell of a lot faster, and he's a better counter puncher as well. So, and we saw what happened, tempo shots, equilibrium shots, and he couldn't recover. So with a Carlos Takam in that, he can have that because they're not skilled combination punches. They might be sort of heavy bruises, but they just don't have that ability. And so he can just bully him, lean on him, headbutt him, do whatever the fuck he wants to do. With Usyk, he's not. He doesn't traditionally fight inside the pocket, nor does he has to. But here, he was able to fight on the front foot whenever he wants. But he was able to tuck himself pretty well. But you're absolutely right. Something you said before. There was a former sparring partner or a fighter from Joshua's Finchley box ABA when he was back as an amateur, and what he said even back then was, if you got aggressive with Joshua, actually took it to him, try to impose your will, he doesn't like that, nor does he react well to that. And we saw that in this fight. An aggressive Usyk prepared to put his punches together to try and bully Joshua, back him up against the rope and just unleash. Joshua never really has. The only thing he can do in that situation is clinch, because Usyk has the better speed. He has the better head movement, better upper body movement. I think he's got the better guard as well. And he's got the faster hands, and he's got the better footwork, and he can break out of clinches. He can get low, very low, to try and neutralize that left hook that Joshua likes to throw on the inside. So Joshua doesn't really have any answers for that.
Yeah, and talking about the low blows, there was 2 in the 5th or the 6th round, or maybe a bit later.
Yes.
But blatant low blows, so fucking dirty. But yeah, that's why I was so fucking glad.
Yeah. There was one in the 5th and there was one in the 6th.
There was one round where I saw him throwing 2 low blows in a row to the nutsack. And yeah, by the way, we were mentioned the holding and hitting with the right uppercut. And there was even a few times where his clinching game served him really well, where when Usyk hurt him with the straight lefts and looping lefts, and when Usyk went on pushed for to follow up with his combos, AJ kept his gloves on his shoulder, on Usyk's shoulder, and that's how he saved himself a couple of times.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, the aggression, even when Usyk was in the zone to throw combos, AJ was in a full defensive mode. He tried to counter here and there a couple of times, but most of the times it was get off me kind of punches. And yeah, but by the way, maybe even tomorrow I'll go, probably tomorrow in the evening or on Monday, I'll do the film study that I was preparing from that fight between Usyk and Pulev. But there was a lot of interesting things to see. But anyways, go on.
But even the official in this fight, the first time Usyk had hurt Joshua very early in the fight with that sweeping hook, Joshua never reacted. You could see his knees buckling a little bit. Usyk coming in, what happened? Michael Alexander came in straight away and separated them. And I went mental after that, because we knew that was going to happen. He wasn't going to let him try and fight on the inside, because Usyk was just coming in close. He was trying to shorten up with that left hand, just sort of that chopping hand on top of the head. But yeah, the referee intervened. There was both of the fighters had there was none of their hands was tied up at all. So we knew it was going to come. You know, Michael Alexander or a Howard Foster. You know, they're both the same entity, really.
Fucking circus, man. But yeah, what's worse is that we expected.
By the way, what was Howard Foster? What was his score?
Well, I'll go to Boxrec to see, but I know that there was one.
Anybody in the chat? Because I didn't see when the verdict was announced. So I'm even
Mm.
unsure of the individual tallies posted by Steve Weisfeld. How
Yeah,
it was.
because one judge had it 116, 112, and two of them had it
Mhm.
115, 113, which which is terrible to me. They were it, it just tells you what a performance. It's a statement to Usyk's performance, because we know that corruption in boxing nowadays is so fucking terrible that they would not hesitate to rob a fighter even when he wins clearly. But Usyk was dominant to the point where 115, 113 was the best they could do. But yeah, if anybody in the chat room could tell us
But
what's
official,
the.
it's
Yep.
remember the first Joshua Franco and Maloney fight, uh, a close scorecard sort of damage limitations. It allows, if there's not a rematch clause, it allows the promoter to actually protest directly with the sanctioning body,
Sorry,
which
can you
Morales
repeat it?
did, and say if there wasn't a knockdown, our guy Maloney wins the fight. Which probably me and you, the only two people who have said who protested on that, saying it was rubbish. But here we have a highly lucrative rematch clause as well, so they're going to put the fight a little bit close. I guess it just creates more sort of anticipation, and the casual fans who they accept whatever performance Joshua puts, however the verdict, they're just brain dead sheep. They just
Yeah.
simply accept it. They'll look at those two cards of 115, 113. They'll say 7 rounds to 5, couple of swing rounds. Maybe Joshua gets it. So I guess it's purely designed to keep interest for the rematch.
Oh yeah, and that's a fantastic point, because I haven't thought of it. But yeah, indeed, knowing that there's a rematch in case Usyk wins, uh, they would want to make it closer. By the way, Uncle Phil in the chat room is saying that there was not two 115 113 cards, but there was only one 115 113, one 116 112, and one 117 to 112. So maybe I was wrong.
Who
Maybe there was
posted?
indeed 117 112 card. Uh,
Uncle Phil, thank you for that. But who submitted those cards? Can you?
that's the question. Well, let me Google it, because you know that very often after the big fights, somebody would snap a picture of the judges' scorecards. So let me
Yeah.
see.
Because I was worried that the Ukrainian judge was a pro Viktor Yanukovych supporter. He was there as almost like a double bluff to try and fuck Usyk.
Yeah. And yeah, Big Phil was right. There was one 117, 112 card, only one 115, 113.
Okay.
And yeah, there.
But that's a little bit more clear cut.
Mhm. You can bet it was Howard Foster that had it closest. You just know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to find.
Eddie Eddie Hearn must be on the back of Joshua signing a long term promotion, whatever
Yeah,
extension with him. Um, Now the super fight, that's all been scuppered. Isn't that wonderful when that happens? And when we talk about the significance of this fight, especially when boxing fans have been so fucked off with
yeah,
more,
and
more,
corruption.
more with all of these horrible scorecards. So it's nice when you actually see the true sort of personification of boxing, a perennial road warrior, smaller man coming into the coming into enemy territory and just sort of comprehensively beating the champion who you know is going to be protected at left, right, and center, but also getting a decision as well, a justifiable decision, not even a split or a majority decision. So that still gives confidence to us boxing fans just to say, okay, there's still hope. We're not going to jettison the sport just yet.
Yeah, and corruption.
Yeah.
speaking of it, I mean, look, many people, many casuals, fucking idiots. They would say like people like corruption and official are just haters because the whole world wants to see the biggest fight in boxing, AJ versus Fury. I mean, it's it would be a very good fight indeed, but the thing is, w- we don't fucking care about the glitters and gold and all the shit show and the people in the attendance. We are caring about the best fighting the best, and the best being respected by the judges. So when they defeat someone, they do not get robbed, and that was exactly what we was fearing of. And yeah, no doubt, we are so fucking glad that this happened. And at the same time, those big famous fighters, these divas like Tyson Fury, I mean, they can all eat a dick, man, because they're so fake. I mean, I do enjoy watching Fury, etc. Extremely good boxer, fantastic boxer in my opinion. Even AJ, I do respect him a lot, and I do think he's a very talented. I mean, not extremely, but very talented boxer. But man, we don't give a fuck about these divas because we know
Yeah.
that they are all and nothing bad being about money and getting the biggest money fight possible. But since Usyk
But you're
stepped
right, official.
to the heavyweight division, since Usyk stepped to the heavyweight division, moved up, Fury was the one saying that he doesn't know who he is and he doesn't want to fight him. He would not fight him. So I think it's pretty much self-explanatory why a boxing fan such as corruption in boxing, such as myself, would hate those bitches tactics. The would have no respect for them and would root against them. I mean, right now I don't know who do I hate more, Wilder or Fury. If you
If
ask
you,
me, they can knock each other out at the same time and they can die, and it would be a fantastic evening for me. But yeah, sorry, you wanted to say something?
yeah, absolutely right, official. You know what I mean? Look at the reasons for the fight being postponed. Nobody gives a flying fuck about that fight
Yeah,
except US based African Americans, LDBC, whatever else, but no one else wants to see the fight. You know,
yeah.
who gives a fuck about Malik Scott has got no history of training fighters. He took a he took an L for Deontay Wilder. So is there any sort of respect that the student has for his trainer? So how the fuck can Malik Scott even, and the way Malik has even been teaching, he's saying that I haven't taught you anything. I'm just bringing out of what you always had. So he doesn't, that's their relationship. That is the arrogance, the deludedness of Deontay Wilder. He cannot even acknowledge that he doesn't, that he's never had any boxing skills and that Malik Scott is actually teaching him a hell of a lot. No, Malik's not teaching me nothing. It's me just bringing him out of my sort of the sheer sort of remnants of my boxing soul. It's just that's the reason why he's just going to keep getting his ass kicked, because he doesn't have the humbleness, the humility. And with Malik Scott, and yet another yes man that he can pay next to nothing as his trainer, that's another recipe for disaster. But who gives a fuck about that? And Fury is a fraud, as we've been saying. Look at the
Yeah,
situation with UCAD that we talked about. You know, that was retrospectively shoved so discreetly under. They'd never even acknowledged that there was a test. UCAD never even published it. There was no case notes, because I actually contacted them when it happened and I asked them, and they just totally stonewalled me. Um, there was no
what a
honor in
surprise.
fighting Vladimir Klitschko in the rematch. Klitschko wanted it so. Favoritism against Otto Wallin with the cut eye. You know, that should have been stopped and he would have lost the fight. So that's another protected diva as well.
Absolutely. I mean, he he got respect from us for the right things that he would do, etc. in the ring. Then I can make a case. I mean, give you the reasons why I do respect Fury, but many reasons why I do not respect him. Why I cannot wait for him and the rest of the divas to fuck off. But by the way, corruption, another reason for me being happy that Usyk, it's at least it's looking like he derailed Joshua versus Fury fight, is that these motherfuckers they're always going to wait for a few years to maximize potential, their winning potential for their
Yeah.
fight, and it's just wonderful when shit like this happens. So I mean, I know that boxing is going to continue to do the same thing. The promoters are still going to push back the big fights, leaving them to fighters when they're out of their primes and when they won enough of money on the shitty fights before throwing them into a real fight. But it should make him think, if shit like this continues to happen, it would make them make the big fights as soon as possible. So it doesn't matter if we are talking about AJ versus Fury or Spence versus Crawford. I'm so fucking glad both of those guys, EJ and Crawford, also are on the verge of disappearing. They can royally fuck off. It's a wonderful feeling,
Yeah.
corruption.
You know, I mean, people have got a massive erection for Bud Crawford finally fighting a live opponent. What,
Finally
35 years?
fighting a B-level fighter.
Yeah, somebody who's probably way past his best, but
Mm-hmm.
still it adds a little bit of validity to his so-called resume right now. And it's, you know, I mean, that is boxing for you. It doesn't matter. Belts and championships don't matter. It's about the quality of opponents when you fight them and how well you actually do against them. The sheer manner of your victory with this guy. My God, man! I think it's that's the problem you have. It's almost like an echo chamber when you're trying to communicate with people who just don't really understand anything. Will make any excuses. Will never accept the truth. Will always be in denial. They're just die-hard boxing fans, irrespective of the merits or the virtues or the flaws or the deficiencies of a fighter who they roll with. Boxing is just consumed by too much emotion and fanboyism, and there's just not enough of acknowledgement or even paying, respect to fighters who truly deserve it. And what we're seeing with Oleksandr Usyk is the greatest road warrior in the history of boxing. Simple as that. No one even comes close to him in the history of boxing.
Absolutely. They were back in the day, back in the 90s, 2000s. There were some American guys, some BNC level fighters that they would call road warriors just because fighting out of their state. Fuck. This is an A level fighter that is always risking to get robbed because he's fighting the guys that are bringing some money for their promoters, their backers, fighting them in their home countries, not having full well. The value fight would tell you otherwise, but like he's not a huge puncher, and so he decisions
Yeah.
them
Yeah.
fucking
Look,
lovely.
look at Joshua's face. And can you believe, official, at the time of the stoppage, Belly was up on the cards as well in that fight. So they were going to rob him in that, which was a fucking travesty as well. So they say adversity makes the weak weaker and the strong stronger. And this guy He's a big game player. You can focus on the Chaz Witherspoons and the Jerick Chisoras, but that is subterfuge just to confuse you weak-minded people as well. This is all a deliberate ploy. If he wants to turn it on and stop you and just outbox you, he will do so. If he wants to be very circumspect and give a total different portrayal of what he's really trying to do, that sort of 3D chess player mentality which he has, that's what he does, Don't be fooled by all of his rhetoric in press conferences or whatever else. He can understand English very well. There's nothing about him. Very smart man, well educated, a man of faith, a family man. It's a blessing to see somebody like that prevail, especially at a time in which society is as decayed and arcane as it is.
Oh yeah,
Good to see,
fantastic. Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. And yeah, uh, Eddie Hearn tried it with value, didn't work. Fucked with Usyk some more for the Chisora fight, couldn't do it. Then
Official. The irony is that Anthony Joshua never even fought Derek Chisora. Now they're both from the same part, North London, same amateur boxing club. You can criticize Usyk, but Joshua never fought him. He never fought a Dillian White who'd actually signed with Matchroom. He fought him when he was outside. He never fought a Filip Hrgovic. All of those Matchroom fighters they had never fought a single one of them.
yeah, and his dick suckers are always going to mention, well, like people are saying about the other fighters that we love, the real fighters like Usyk, like Pacquiao, like I don't know who else, but there are many examples. So they will ask why he didn't fight this or that person, while their favorite fighters they have much better opportunities to fight those same guys, but they don't even ask why they're not fighting anybody. And okay, yeah, like we said, AJ's resume is solid, but looking at the time at which he fought them, not that amazing like it looks on the paper. And yeah, at the same time, he signed Eddie Hearn. I mean, he signed Usyk right after winning that cruiserweight tournament. And I think, oh, well, yeah, you and me discussed it. I think it was you saying Eddie Hearn was deliberately waiting to separate Usyk from his prime footwork for as long as possible, as long as it takes, but still couldn't do it. And yeah, you would say it's time to celebrate now. I would agree with it, but let me ask you about something for the rematch. I mean,
Before you
the
ask me,
moment.
yeah, before you ask me, I just want to say one thing. I think when Usyk gets home and he looks at his the surplus on his bank account, the the first thing he should do is to buy a gold binded Urban Dictionary and send that to Deontay Wilder with a big thank you.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
Go on, you're going to ask me, son.
Yeah. Okay. So for the rematch, so fans of both sides are right now either crying, committing suicides, or ourselves celebrating. It's all nice, but AJ's backers, the moment that fight finished, the moment the scorecards were read, and Usyk got called the new heavyweight champion of the world, they already started, making a game plan of how to get those belts back, because uh, Usyk didn't beat a boxer. He beat a one man corporation who has many backers. I mean, AJ, who's sponsored by two car dealerships. I mean,
Yeah.
two luxury car brands. Boxers cannot yet only one of them, but he has two of luxury car brands behind him and many other sponsorships, etc. So it's a lot of money, and with the Fury fight that was on the horizon, we have no doubt there the judges and the refs in the rematch can only be worse than they were tonight. So yeah, I think it's going to be even more difficult fight for Usyk. Oh, that's one point of view. So the question is, if you agree with that, that it could be from that one side, it could be more difficult for him because there is going to be even more fuckery in every possible way. But on the other hand, what I'm thinking, what's looking good for Usyk in the rematch is that he didn't have one punch KO power to let's say finish AJ early or in the mid rounds, but it was a prolonged beating, fucking beating that AJ would need a lot of time to recover from. So for right now, me myself, I'm not sure how it's gonna be in the rematch. If is it going to be easier for Usyk or not? How do you see it? What do you think about it?
It's an interesting question because Eddie Hearn is in a precarious position because he's literally pumped all of his money into Joshua, and we
Yeah, and
saw
sorry,
what sort of
sorry for
talent
cutting you off.
he
I know
has. He hasn't developed young talent, but he's tried to buy a lot of fighters who already have championship belts, but a lot of them haven't equated into anything. I think the only guy who potentially has a little bit in terms of numbers is Conor Ben. There seems to be a lot of interest with him. Whenever he fights, his numbers are pretty good, so that may be it. Anybody else, I'm not sure about. I don't really know his stable too well, but in terms of a in terms of a rematch, the two things official is that Joshua's eye looked pretty fucked up. I don't know
Mhm.
whether Usyk is possibly cracked his orbital or something. I don't know, but I was watching the fight with no commentary, so I'm unsure. But so we'll have to wait a little bit on that one. But in terms of Usyk into the second fight, I think he'll have supreme confidence. I think he realizes now that irrespective of the weight difference, he can take. And we always said that this guy's got a very good chin. He's always fought against big guys. When you actually fighting against a Joe Joyce and Vladimir and Junior Farr and Baturbiev, who's a murderous puncher, and you fought him 4 times. This guy can take a punch. He's fought super heavyweight, going up from 168. He's fought everybody. He's taken punches. He's fought punches in their prime. I never believed that Joshua was carrying the power. And I never thought that in this fight. I thought Usyk would not be in range for Joshua to land flush, and that's the key. The Kubrat pull-ups, and they're all stand in front of you. So Joshua was able to, line them up, punch through the target, no problem. Maximizes the damage. Against Usyk, he's perpetual motion. So you're never getting proper leverage. You're almost guessing where he is. Sometimes you'll land, a little bit of trial and error, but he's able to roll and ride the punches, so he's not taking them flush. So, so official, what's Joshua gonna do the second fight? He bulks up. I think Usyk will have an even easier time. He comes in too light. Doesn't matter. Usyk will always have the superior hand, foot speed, movement, ring IQ, etc. They're not gaps. I think he can offset within the short time span. Maybe he'll try and come and be a little bit more aggressive from the opening bell, but I think Usyk will be wary of that. Usyk would then go back onto doing what Vasily was against Teofimo. Just a little bit cautious, but still staying within range, maybe landing one or two, not as aggressive. But I think second fight, I think Usyk knocks him out this time and even quicker.
Lovely. Yeah, very possible. And indeed, if someone is going to look better in the rematch, you would have to bet it would be Usyk, because his capability. to think on the fly in the ring. His ring IQ are superior to AJ's, and AJ does have for a heavyweight fighter, for a champion, he has a lot of, I would say, a lot of tricks in his book, in his bag, but he's not the same like Usyk, who can make the changes on the fly. Not the same IQ. AJ is more kind of like a drill type of fighter, and what I mean by that, he he would get a carefully tailored game plan, and then he would drill it. But it's not to the point where he can think that quickly inside of the ring and make the adjustments for the most part. So yeah, I would say Usyk's performance in the rematch is going to be even more impressive. At least I hope so, and I can see it definitely. But on the other hand, I would say that he would have politics against him. Even it would, in that sense, it would be worse than this first fight. Like it couldn't get any worse. But I would say maybe, but maybe thinking right now, right here from the top of my dome, I'm wondering if AJ and his team would think, well, we cannot hit Usyk boxing with him. We cannot hit him with anything clear, anything serious to hurt him, because he's keeping us out of balance, moving in and out of range. So maybe they can opt for muscling out Usyk. I mean, doing a lot of clinches, etc. But yeah, indeed, at the same time, it would be riskier for him. But maybe they take that chance. And I don't know. I'm speaking from the top of my dome right now. I'm not even. I don't know what to say. Maybe if you give me some time to think seriously about that rematch, I would come up with a different conclusion.
One thing I wanted to ask you, official, was analyzing this fight again. To me, it looked like Joshua's most effective punches was when he was going to the body, but he
Well,
but he never
mhm,
went to the body often enough. But the punches I actually saw him land to the body, eh, they appeared to have done the most damage in terms of maybe just offsetting Usyk's rhythm a little bit, made him a little bit more cautious. He didn't come in straight away. He was always getting his get back. We saw a pretty homogenous sequence in the fight. Usyk leading, landing, Joshua trying to come back a bit, and then Usyk immediately coming back. A little bit
mhm.
like Manny Pacquiao and Ugas, what Manny was doing with Ugas, but sadly was never acknowledged or even reflected in the scorecards. But
Yeah.
when Joshua was actually going to the body, we saw a slight breakup of that sequence. I don't know what you saw.
Yeah, that's you know what? I I remember what I also remember are AJ's straight right counters that he landed on Usyk, where there was a very few in comparison to, certainly in comparison to Usyk's punches. There was very few powerful straight right counters that he landed. Um, Most of them had the steam taken off of them by Usyk, had movement, blocking, but I saw him landing, timing him rather well, very well with those straight right hands when Usyk was jumping in. So those were the punches from Joshua that I remember the most. But yeah, indeed, he stopped Usyk a few times in his tracks with body punches, and you're completely right. He threw them much less, but those punches downstairs were harder because Usyk was there. If I mean, he was when he was going in and out, jumping in and out, controlling the distance, AJ was not able to land them, but when Usyk was using head movement and the lateral movement, when he would get slightly on the inside of
Yeah.
Joshua's range, that's when AJ was able to stop him in his track with straight rights to the body, because moving laterally against AJ, he was using his upper body movement perfectly, but the body was there, and AJ was able to put all of his body weight into those straight right punches. So yes, I do agree with you on that. That's a great call, in my opinion.
And we saw, Joshua just has no ability to even cut off the ring. Doesn't
Yeah,
Just made no concerted effort. He should have been employed those hooks from both, and he's actually got a very good left hook, but I don't know. When a fighter has suffered a real debilitating knockout defeat, not all of them recover from that sort of defeat. When you've suffered a major loss of confidence, we saw Vladimir Klitschko very early on in the Ukraine when he was fighting, and when he made that transition to Emmanuel Stewart, become a little bit better even defensively. But with Joshua, the chin has always been vulnerable since the amateurs. He's just never had a sturdy chin. He's got strong legs, and they can absorb a hell of a lot of the blows as well. But when you have a lack of confidence and you haven't got supreme confidence in your chin, and then you decide to get a dispensation for a 20-foot by 20-foot-inch ring for a rematch in Saudi Arabia, where you could just run around the ring and do nothing against a fighter who doesn't have that acceleration in his footwork. But I thought Andy Ruiz was still landing a hell of a lot of punches. I thought those scorecards were absolutely crazy. It was no shutout victory at all. I need to go back and watch that again, but I felt Ruiz was landing quite a lot of punches in that fight. So that would, to me, that almost reinforced that Joshua. I don't think he would recover once he got up against a fighter who not only had Andy Ruiz's sort of hand speed, but was able to counter. But then he had, you know, a little bit of Povetkin in him, that explosiveness, bounciness as well. So when you combine all of those fighters in one, and with Usyk's supreme confidence in his will, it's just a stylistic nightmare for Joshua. I don't know whether he can make any adjustments in the rematch. At this moment in time, I cannot see it.
yeah, that's very well said, because Usyk, he's composed by a couple of those nightmares of AJ. So yeah, very very complex fighter that carries everything that that is terrible for AJ. I fully agree with you. I would say that one good thing that he was doing, and it was that he was, to a very good extent, I would say, he negated many of those Usyk's pivots on his front foot to get to the blind angle. I mean, it's very simple but useful, and definitely he was prepared to defend himself from it, and it was to take a step back and eventually try to pivot a little bit with him, and
Yeah.
so it was good enough to take out those angles, but those were not the only angles that Usyk was using. And also, Usyk was using head movement, going also in and out, bouncing in between long and mid range. So too complex for for AJ to prepare for all of that.
Yeah. And when it comes to I think both official and myself in our respective covenant jurisdictions, I think we both had a bit of a nightmare in terms of watching the fight as well. I came in a little bit later, had a tremendous problems with finding the fight and even finding a decent sort of uninterrupted stream. So in terms of a proper sort of insightful technical breakdown, maybe even a punch stat count, we'll see. We'll try and come back a little bit later on once we've both seen the fight a few times, and it's going to be watching the fight with a bottle of whiskey and a huge Cuban cigar for me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, even the punch count for Pacquiao-Ugas fight, I have it ready. I already uploaded it a few weeks ago, but it got deleted by YouTube. We didn't get any strikes, luckily, but it got deleted. So I meant to try to upload it today, but I completely forgot it. I will try tomorrow or on Monday. Hopefully, we get that on our channel. Then yeah, hopefully the zone and whatever are the companies that are deleting film
official.
studies. Yeah.
Was there any significant fights on the undercard? I didn't see. All
No,
I heard that the mighty Campbell Hatton got a gift decision.
I, I, I heard the same, but I was only watching the Okoli fight, and
Oh, okay.
I should have missed it as well. I mean, Okoli, he was fighting a Montenegrin, Dylan Prashovic, and so I could say that Dylan Prashovic was giving him a lot of trouble in when it comes to boxing, but it was a not very interesting fight. Stopped early.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard the same thing about Ricky Fetton's bum son. I mean, I heard that everybody was saying, because I was listening Thunderdome's live stream. Everybody on the live stream, in the comment and on the panel, was they had Ricky's son either losing 5-1 or 6-0. Yeah, I mean, talk about the hype jobs. So
What I heard was that Myris Breeders was in attendance for the fight. Now I had thought he had announced that he was moving up to heavyweight and perhaps relinquishing his belts.
mhm.
I don't think that's no longer the case. I've not really been in the loop with boxing news recently. Is that the case?
Well, if that was the case, I missed it.
Yeah.
Maybe possible, but yeah, great point. Because just a few days ago, a few weeks ago, we found out that Mary's Breeder said that he's moving up to heavyweight division. But yeah, it's confusing, and I think it was after Okoli's fight. He was mentioning a couple of top cruiserweight names. The French guy, Romanian French guy, Gulerminian, then a couple of others I cannot remember. And
Ilunga Makabu and
oh yeah,
Breeders.
Mokabu. And I'm wondering if he mentioned the previous two there. Because he
Yeah.
was mentioning, yeah, he mentioned their names and saying they are already in contact. That they want to fight. All of them want to fight Okoli next.
Yeah. I mean, Lawrence Okoli is an interesting guy, man. He calls himself the Sauce. He's got to be on that steroid sauce because he was a complete bum at the Olympics. He got comprehensively beaten first round when he turned professional. Aesthetically, he was one of the worst fighters going. Boxing fans had nicknamed him Bambi Legs and the Octopus Clutcher. Horrible, horrible fights. Who was he knocking out? No one. And all of a sudden now he's just stopping people left, right, and center. I don't know about that.
Oh yeah, definitely know that. By the way, shout out to everybody in the chat room, Mystery, OG Boogie, big up to him, uh, and everybody else. Apology. I don't know who's else, but by the way, Mystery is telling you no corruption. I heard he changed his mind and gonna stay cruiser.
Good.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, because we want to see that fight. Morris Breeders against Lawrence Coley. That fight, there's no reason. I think if that's the case, I guess Breeders will probably have a mandatory next. Does he have one or two belts? Dorticos when he fought it. I'm not even.
Should be two at least because he already got one belt, or maybe not. Because
Yeah,
I'm wondering before going into finals with Dorticus, if he had any belt, if he won a belt against Kornatsky and the other guy.
yeah.
Um,
I'm sure. I'm sure Breeders has one or two, but he's probably the Ring Magazine champion as well, by virtue of winning the boxing Super Series, which he should realistically. That's absolutely all of the best fighters were invited to fight in the tournament. So he, the winner of that tournament, like Callum Smith, got the Ring Magazine, but he never had. He only had. He only took the belt off George Grove, so it's a bit of a farce. But in either case, yeah, Breeders, Ilunga Makabu, let him come back down to the UK. Hopefully, he can right the wrong against Tony Bellew and just, he's an exciting fighter. So and he's very heavy handed as well. So that'll be a Southpaw Orthodox against a 6'5". Might have some troubles with the sheer length for Coley. Um, but we don't know with Lawrence as well, As long as he's got UCAD and he's able to take diuretics to get his weight down to below 200 pounds, he's got a chance. He's going to get all of the protection he needs. But
yeah, I mean, you can, but I mean,
yeah, yeah.
oh, oh, oh,
Lawrence
oh,
Sakuri really should be fighting. If he was a man, he had any sort of dignity. They dragged Blavatsky to London, fighting the champion in London. Is he really gonna go the and try and sort of replicate what Usyk did and go and fight Breeders in
no way,
overseas
no way.
in Latvia? Not a chance. That's what real fighters do. Does he have the balls to do that? I sincerely doubt it. I
Of
think
course
Akoli,
not.
you need to go back and work in McDonald's, my friend.
Yeah, he can get the fuck out. OG Boogie saying, I wonder if they're going to elevate Alexander Usyk to the number one position for pound. That's a good question, and I mean, this victory definitely is going to force us to make very soon to make another episode on our pound for pound list because there were some changements.
Yeah.
Um, so this fight included. But from the top of your head, or do you want to save that topic for another episode? But
No,
or
that's
do
it.
you want?
Big hello to everybody in the chat. G Boogie as well. I call him OCP G Boogie because just like OCP in RoboCop, I think he supplies assault weapons to the police and military. But yeah, we need to do revisit our pound for pound list, and our list is obviously very unique because we're not even remotely interested in some of this ridiculous, inept, corrupt, whatever officiating. We back our ability to score fights, backing up with film studies and punch stat. So we'll score the fight on the basis of validity and substantiating our so-called subjective opinion, so that it almost becomes an objective as much as you can. So I think our pound for pound list, officially and myself, I think it's getting better and better and better. We had no Charlos, none of that rubbish because we knew they were just rubbish fighters. Gonzalez. We kept Lomachenko. because we knew he never lost that fight. And now everybody is slowly turning the corner and realizing that Teofimo Lopez is just nothing but a one-hit wonder, protected fighter, a fraud,
Exactly.
a gold digger. And we'll see how the relationship's going to play out with Bob Arum. But nah, I think our list official was, we had Breeders on there. We had Josh Taylor pretty high, and he's undisputed. So it's the best list out there.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, not because it's our list, but we know what we are talking about, and we know what we are seeing in the ring. So two reasons, I mean, two proofs that shows you that we are spot on for the most of the time, if not every time, is that, yeah, like you said, we know what we are seeing in the ring, and sooner or later everybody else sees it. And the second thing is, look, when it comes to why you don't have Crawford on your pound for pound list, Canelo, why Canelo is not only your number one, but he's not there at all. I mean, look, just one example of how correct we are. You have the biggest stars in boxing, AJ and Canelo. So the biggest money makers in boxing currently, without any doubt. Everything's good. I mean, they have, you would say, rather exciting styles for the most part, isn't it? So with them, with such huge names that are exciting to watch in the ring. On top of that, boxing should be in its golden age, but that's not the case, because even the casuals, or many, or what's even worse, many true boxing fans, long time boxing fans, they see that all of this is a freak show, it's a bullshit, it's just full blown corruption. So if they were that good as those cocksucking motherfuckers, those casuals are claiming they are, boxing would be fucking booming. It would be huge sport even today. It wouldn't be some fucking, I don't know. um, I mean, everybody would be watching boxing if that was the case. But no, because even casuals, they see it sucks for some reason. Uh, Hardcore boxing fans, long-time boxing fans, see it even better. So we know what we are talking. We know why certain fighters, superstars, are not on our list at all.
Yeah.
I rest
And
my
if there's
case.
anybody new to the podcast, we would invite you to go back to official, was it the second or the third, where we pretty much devoted almost an entire podcast into breaking down the fraudulent and the superficial career of one Canelo Alvarez.
I think it was the
And
second one.
justification as to why. A tremendous fighter. We're not even disputing his boxing skills, but it's all of the sort of components that boxing fans just sort of take for granted around him. And you've got to look at the decisions as well. And we've spoken about it, and it's it's a topic that we don't really like to revisit, because what we're seeing now, Canelo, when you're beating Rocky Balboa Fielding and Avni Yildirim and Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith and a Caleb Plant, to try and pacify your boxing fans as to why you don't want to get back in the ring with Gennady Golovkin, who's already beaten you twice and only got one card out of 6. I mean, that shows just the level of corruption in the sport. Who gives a fuck about his reign at super middleweight? That is one of the poorest reigns. That's almost on par with Bud Crawford's reign when he beaten, a Julius Mandingo and God knows who else he beat. But Bud Crawford, did he really beat Victor Postel? It was something we doubted straight away when the fight happened. I don't
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to have to go back and rescore that fight, but I never thought so at the time. So I thought Postol landed more punches, but we're gonna have to go on that back on that one and try and maybe do an analysis again on that one, maybe do a live rescore. But so
Yeah,
there's
but
a lot of
corruption. Yeah, we may do that fight in between Crawford and Postol,
yeah.
but we cannot promise it because it's very possible that there's a huge possibility we
The coup
we
de
fall
grace
asleep.
getting targeted.
No, we fall asleep because of how boring that performance was.
Yeah, remind me. I take a couple of Sudafed and some Adderall. Yeah, it was one of the worst fights, but I'm sure we can get past that for 36 minutes and
Yeah.
try and give a a better sort of breakdown and a more accurate portrayal. I mean, when you have Steve Kim coming on the BDA and saying that Victor Postol couldn't even land a glove on Bud Crawford,
Oh
well,
yeah, the mainstream narrative.
yeah, and he's supposed to be one of the sharpest guys out there, and if that's his opinion, then well, I'm not going to say anything else until we can provide some validity to to our fringe opinions.
Man, yeah, those. I mean, and I would even say, in my opinion, he he is the best of the boxing mainstream media guys, but it just tells you how terrible the rest of them are. I mean, look at this corruption. I mean, Dougie Fisher, and I found it out on Thunderdome's boxing stream. Thunderdome mentioned it just right after the Pacquiao-Ugas fight. He was saying like he was tweeting out straight out. I'm glad you Pacquiao fans lost the money on him, betting on him, supposedly because they were doubting,
Um,
complaining about the scores, etc. But in his mind, it was so clear, or maybe there was another reason. But how unprofessional it is as a head of the supposed Bible of boxing to talk like that to fans of one fighter. When plus on top of that, if you examine that fight, if you just not even you don't even have to examine it with the microscope, but just simply watch it without the commentary, without the sound on, you can see that they they are right about what they're saying, because we are saying the same thing about that fight.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, when the Ring magazine's ownership changed hands and its headquarters changed from Pennsylvania to California, any remnants of credibility that that magazine once had all but disappeared. I never even reference it. I never even look at their rankings, their pound for pound lists. ESPN don't even look at their lists. I've got no idea. I, to me, they're just totally irrelevant.
Oh yeah. In my defense, only both one example of recent Rings editions. It was because they had Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez on the cover. I bought it simply for that. But man, I mean, why should I read that shit or buy it when I'm capable of doing a much better research when it comes to any fight? Plus, I trust in my own judgment much better than in theirs, because I'm a boxing fan. I'm not getting paid from for talking about boxing here or anywhere else, so I have no reason to lie anyone. I just
Damn right.
yeah. Well, I mean, we know we see these pound for pound top 10 lists. They're terrible. They're just a marketing scheme, for whoever TV network like ESPN. They would have Butt, Butt Crawford their number one, or even Tyson Fury, or somewhere on the top 10. Then the zone fucking Canelo. I mean, yeah, he's a damn good fighter, but man, not nowhere near as they claim they are.
If
And
if
why
if Oleksandr Usyk is still behind Bud Crawford, I'm gonna be killing a few
behind
people.
Spence, I would guess. fucking fucking retarded. And look, excuse me. Let's talk again about Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez. Why he's not back on the, not only on their top 10, but number one, or at least very least number two. He beat, I mean, he beat two champions in a row. If you go by the
Yes,
judgment of anyone with a healthy pair of eyes, not those of the judges, but
and not forgetting the coup d'etat of boxing's number one punch style count video just to reinforce it.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. I mean, people should go and see, go search for Roman Gonzalez Estrada rematch punch count. There's our video. I mean, we did a great job.
These
So yeah,
motherfuckers, they don't understand what the concept of pound for pound. They don't even understand what it means. They think it's just based on resume. It's got nothing to do with that whatsoever. And that's one of the problems of boxing official. You've got all of these whack ass YouTube channels who don't understand even the criteria for scoring fights. They don't understand rules, refereeing, the history of boxing, sanctioning bodies, divisions. They simply don't really understand anything, and that's why when it comes to when the sport is in such utter chaos the way it is, the only the only sanity we have as sort of fringe voices is our own ability to score a fight, and if we can back it up, and if there's a sizable audience out there who's able to converse with us, able to listen to us, and can see the evidence that we are submitting to corroborate our sort of verdicts on what transpired. That's the only thing we can do, and we can hope that eventually it can gravitate. There'll be a large enough audience, and they can perhaps, you know, review it, and therefore, that sort of revolutionary momentum will start. Apart from that, what more can you do?
yeah, exactly. I mean, what's happening in boxing is just the same thing that's happening in the world today in the politics. Uh, the mainstream narrative would try to shut the other voices down. So, and many people would think they're crazy for even doubting the mainstream narrative if they didn't hear some people on the internet who are thinking the same thing as them. So yeah, it's important to voice our opinions on the fights. I mean, look, to go back to Chocolatito. I mean, why wouldn't he be back on at the very top of pound for pound list? It's just because he doesn't have a backing. Because back in the day he was on HBO, he had a much bigger backing behind him.
Yeah.
So that's why he was there in the first place. I mean, if he stayed fighting in Japan or the other countries, Nicaragua, Mexico, but mainly Japan, I'm not even sure if he would be on anyone's pound for pound list. It was just because people got to know him on HBO and he had the backing. But now that he is not on HBO anymore and that he serves to Eddie Hearn for picking up some other fighters that he thought would be much more profitable to him than Chocolatito, because on top of that, Chocolatito Matchroom is it's a third party to Chocolatito. I don't know how to explain it, but it's not his main promoter. And on top of that, he's there serving a purpose of being the opponent, the name to beat, like it was the case in his rematch with Estrada. So that's why he's not on the pound for pound list, although he looks better than any other guy. That performance against Estrada was fucking fire. But that's what we are getting. And I would like to say shout out to Doug. He says people buy into popular narratives too much. They repeat what others say instead of looking at the fight themselves and making a judgment. Couldn't say it any better.
And the commentary is one of the biggest components in coercing, as it was clearly evident in the Manny Pacquiao and Ugas fight. I think that was almost a threshold reached with the amount of people that were just brain. I'd made a lot of comments around, and the amount of sort of victimization and the amount of my some of the comments that were coming back to me, but they just can't score fights. They just don't know what they're watching. They're just coerced by commentary. It's as bad as what it is. And we talked about it before. They don't even have the autonomous ability to score fights, official. They actually need the commentary to almost guide them.
Yeah.
That sort of preemptive their mindset so that they know, so they just simply go with the flow.
Yeah. Just tells you how much they know about boxing. But it is what it is. But to hold on, I have to do something.
I wanted to make one point when you was talking about Gonzalez and
Sure.
Estrada. Let me give you an example of just how much, the adversity that Gonzalez we talked about was going to face, and we know with Estrada was we talked about not only the protection he received against Carlos Quadras with the redacted round, but when you talk about him and Sarisikat is the one is in addition to Gonzalez is the other fighter who inflicted a clean victory against him. So when what happens when Sarisikat is once against the mandatory for Estrada, the WBC clearly do not want to see that fight, so they introduce a super champion status so that Estrada no longer has to face a mandatory. So therefore, Sarisikat fights against Carlos Quadras for the regular WBC belt because they know that's not a fight. And I'm sure the WBC and even the promoters had something to do with Sarisikat fighting in an orthodox stance against Estrada in their second fight. I'm sure they probably said to him, look, we'll promise you a title shot somewhere down the line, but in this fight, we want Estrada to win the rematch and get back the WBC belt. So I felt they were behind that as well, and they're certainly behind Estrada getting a super champion status so that he doesn't have to fight Sadissakat now.
Oh well, from my understanding, what's happening right now is that Estrada had that WBC belt, but he agreed to be turned into what's the name of
Franchise. Sorry, not
franchise?
super
Yeah,
champion. I
franchise.
mean the same thing, yeah, franchise, yeah.
Yeah, so he agreed to that. So he can fight for the real belt, the winner of Srisaket and Quadras, and the real WBC belt has been moved on to Srisaket, and supposedly the winner is going to the winners of both fights are supposed to meet and fight for that belt. But recently I heard some people talking about them not being able to finalize the third fight in between Chocolatito and Estrada. I
Good.
think that both of them are asking for 1 million apiece. So 1 million for Estrada, 1 million for Gonzalez, and it looks like, from what I'm hearing, that either the financial backers or the promoter are not willing to do that.
Well, that's a disowned decision from Estrada's point perspective. Gonzalez has a little bit more flexibility, but I think Gonzalez may have received 1 million for their second fight.
Yeah, and I do think, in fact, that they both received 1 million for the rematch, but for some
Okay.
reason they don't want to pay them again that money for the third fight.
Yeah, yeah. Let's not pay him 1 million each, even though we got the fight of the year. That makes
Yeah,
fucking sense, doesn't it?
yeah. I
Ah,
mean, the number of asses they're putting in the ring fighting in America, and how many people love to watch them fight worldwide. I mean, I
it's
mean,
easy
look,
bullshit. I mean, Roman Gonzalez is unequivocally top 10 greatest fighters of all time, and I'll repeat that.
and I agree, fully agree.
His final position for us will be a lot higher because there's no way Estrada beat him, and there was no way Usyk beat him as well. So, and if he'd won the first fight, there wouldn't have been a rematch. So he wouldn't have got into that second fight after the death of his trainer. So you're talking about a guy who'd still be, would he be what, 50, 52 and 0 now? So yeah, it's a lot of politics, the same sort of politics that may have come in when Larry Holmes was trying to supersede Rocky Marciono's 49-0. Them so the powers that work behind boxing that didn't want Roman Gonzalez eclipsing Floyd Mayweather, they came into force for that fight.
Oh yeah, and on top of that, like I'm always saying, at the same time, they were trying to make Andre Ward number one pound for pound,
Get the
because
fuck out of
yeah,
here.
it's
Yeah,
it's a circus, it's a joke.
yeah. Andre Ward, my God, man.
But you know what, corruption? I know
Yeah.
what is going to make you feel better. Hold on, I have a surprise for you. A good surprise.
Okay. If it rhymes with cherry kiss,
I would say even better.
even, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
No, don't be playing this record. Coming from an audio man, that is the worst record that has ever been released. Yeah, without a doubt. Damn. I mean, I accepted it for that one sort of a sarcasm video that you did with Eddie Hearn that time in his underpants.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah,
Man, corruption.
yeah,
You haven't seen. I mean, I had a great idea for the pre-show fight, for the pre-fight show that I was supposed to do today before the fight for Usyk versus Joshua.
yeah.
But I'm gonna prepare it for the next episode. You're
Good,
going to love it.
good. I mean, on that note, official, we'll come back. We'll see, but we might come and give it more of a sort of a technical breakdown of the fight. But this was an important post-fight reaction because Oleksandr Usyk executed the coup de grace. The new, it was a hell of a ground, and I mean that. Give credit to Daniel Levy and Tottenham Hotspurs. I mean, I went to their old ground a number of years ago, maybe about 15, 20 years ago, White Hart Lane. But this new stadium, state of the art, hell of a stadium. I'm not sure where the rematch is going to be, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. But this was a fantastic night and something that we, the hardcore boxing fans, were really looking for, and we really needed it because the robberies and all kinds of fuckeries are happening all the time, even
Yeah.
much more than before, more blatant than before. So it was much needed to
Ah.
see a cash cow, a very extremely good but overrated fighter, protected fighter, getting his ass kicked, and we got it.
Yeah, man. He got his ass kissed by a Usyk who's too small. He can't punch. He's got no power, man.
Oh yeah, 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 man. I right now what I want to do is go all over the internet,
Yeah.
watch all the episodes from all the different podcasts, from the
Shoot
from
down that BDA garbage first thing.
though I don't want to to disrespect, but man, the people that were claiming that age is gonna do this or that, and that we don't know what we're talking about, man, that's what I'm aiming for. All
Yeah.
these all these
Yeah, I
names.
don't mean to BDA and Butcher. They're always friends. I'm talking about the people, the chat.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh well, definitely the people that were calling in there claiming that
Yes.
AJ is going to do this or that. And I mean, Anthony on his channel Thunderdome Boxing, he also saw many idiots, retards that I mean, it was, man, I don't know, but
Yeah, man. Even to the little homie Haitian, you need
oh
to you need to pack lunch and go back to school, my friend.
yeah.
Boxing's not for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, oh, almost said H money, not H money, Haitian sensation. Although the way he was talking about Usyk versus Joshua,
Yeah, that's what I
you could
mean.
argue it was on the level of H money. Then, man, L Dog, I would have to say something about him. I mean, he's a funny guy, nice guy, but the lately he started trolling too much, and it got boring and overwhelming. I mean, he cannot. Uh, I don't know. I do think that I'm seeing and following the news, the things that are happening in Australia, in New Zealand. I think that L Dog is cracking under pressure because of what's happening in his country. They're on lockdown. Probably his parents are annoyed with him because he's there all the
No, no.
time.
I mean,
They cannot have a normal sexual life. So L
see,
Dog,
I've never had a problem with L Dog, even
me neither.
with his
I,
opinions. No,
I,
that's his opinions. So be it. We disagree. Um, he's still a young man learning the trade of boxing, etc. I'm almost double his age, so it's it's just different places on the galaxy for us.
no, well, with L Dog, I understand. I understand him, but I had to take a dig because man, it was these few last weeks they were annoying, and you know that I've been listening to Aldog trolling Pacquiao's fans since forever and saying nonsense about Pacquiao, and it always made me laugh despite disagreeing with him. But right now, I had I
Yeah.
had to take a little dig because man, people should listen when knowledgeable boxing fans are telling you something instead of just repeating baseless nonsense.
Damn right.
He's gonna do this or that. He's gonna stop him. Usyk cannot take his punch. It's gonna be complicated. Well, no. So I mean that.
Yeah, man. it's a victory for the cerebral fighters and the cerebral boxing fans who understand what's going on, who can read between between the lines, look at the gray areas, you know, the deception. That's how war is fought. It's deception. That's how do you think the Russian Federation took Crimea from the Ukraine? There was no Russian forces even on that, never even crossed the border. You know, how did the Russian Federation get NATO to move back west in from Libya, etc.? So it's these guys are the masters of that.
Yeah, and I mean, one last point from me
Yeah.
about people that were picking AJ and telling us that AJ is gonna stop Usyk.
Hmm.
I, you're talking about Usyk being a cerebral fighter. Just how many times we were talking about certain cerebral fighters and their ring IQ,
Yeah.
their underrated skills,
Yeah.
and then they would lose officially, and they would people like, let's say, Eldog or many other people would use the fucking terrible official scorecards
Yeah.
to just to try to say that people like you, me, Thunderdome, Precise, Recognize the Matrix, and
Mm.
other people that we were wrong, although we were right, only that people that officially the official result was was some kind of fuckery, was a robbery, so it was not backed by the official decisions.
Yeah.
But here right now, you saw what happened tonight.
Yeah. When Vasily Lomachenko got fucked over by Lopez, did the coup d'etat of boxing even move him from our pound for pound rankings? No, because we understood what was going on and we had even faith in the fighter that, yeah, whether it's shoulder surgery or whatever else, he'll be back. He'll reclaim the throne. But there's a lot of fighters. I think L Dog was a big Vasily guy, and after that, I think he pretty much lost all confidence in him. But now he might be getting it back again. I don't know. I don't really listen to all of these
Well,
pods.
yeah, well, corruption.
Yeah.
Funny what you're saying, because I mean, again, L-Dog, yeah, exactly. I saw the same thing with him and Lomachenko. He lost the confidence. And it brings me back to what you said just a couple of minutes earlier about boxing fans, that they're not sure of what they're seeing in the ring, so they need the commentary team to tell them what to think and to explain them the situation. And you can bet that they're not going to really help you understand what's going on in the ring. So
Yeah, the thing is, scoring a fight is very difficult, where it can be potentially difficult. I mean, if you look at probability, when have you seen all three scorecards submitted by judges being exactly the same? It is very rare. They have prime position, but they're sitting in different positions, so it is difficult. What people tend to do is they're just too impatient. They just want to come on YouTube or on boxing pods or calls and just make themselves look like fools by a premature opinion, something in
yeah,
which if they go back and rewatch they may subsequently change, whatever else. We're not about that. Just be patient, watch the fight. you know Chances are official and myself are always in some tremendous pain watching the fight at some ridiculous hour, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. If you realize our schedules, you know that it's very, very difficult for both of us. We're on killer hours at the moment at sort of crazy times. So, you know, yeah, just exercise some patience, you know, some diligence, watch the fight, study it, turn off the commentary, never even listen to commentary, irrespective of what network it is. That's just a simple lesson. Use your own mind, use your own eyes, make up your own mind, irrespective of whether you're going to offend, certain peers that you respect. No, just that's it. It's just simple common sense.
Yeah. So, speaking of the late hours,
Yeah.
it's 3:15 a.m.
Yeah. On that note, man, I'm out of here.
It was a great pleasure talking to you about
Absolutely.
this fight.
One of the best boxing nights, period. It's got
Oh yeah.
nothing to do with the proclivity of liking a fighter, whatever. It's just having faith in the fighter who has demonstrated all of the virtues that appeal to us real hardcore boxing fans. And that's what it's about, overcoming the odds, but having faith in that fighter to execute it and deliver when it matters the most. And that's what we saw. A unique individual, a unique fighter, and couldn't be any happier for him.
The ultimate road warrior.
Yeah, the perennial road warrior.
Yeah. Not the fake one going from state to state.
Yeah. Andre Ward. Oh man, I'm going from Oklahoma to New Jersey. I think that's an away victory.
Yeah, yeah. I beat Sergey Kovalev in the neutral on the neutral ground cleanly,
Yeah. You got to look
without
up.
any corruption.
Yeah, you got to look up what these fighters, Golovkin, Pacquiao, Usyk, Lomachenko, are doing. They're establishing their base in other countries, learning new languages, having to deal with. If we could actually, sort of quantify just how much adversity what these guys have to go through, is just incredible. You try learning another languages and living in another country, and you realize just how difficult it is. And what these guys are doing, they're fighting the system, the political system, the economic system, and then they're fighting all of the politics. When you multiply that within sport, which has it almost outright, that's what, just the level they're dealing with. And to overcome that's a monumental historic victory.
Oh yeah.
And on that note, Kudatara Boxing, big shout out to everybody who was able to join us. A hell of a lot of podcasts going about, so thank you to those who showed some loyalty and some sort of respect towards us as well. Not a great deal of people. I'm sure we can count them on our hands just how many, but thank you. It's much appreciated.